What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Today we are back with probably one of the longest videos ever, and we're going to be doing on a tier list. We are doing it on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I haven't done this in, I think, 2 years, and since then, multiple movies, multiple shows has come out, and not only am I going to be ranking just the MCU, I'm going to be doing all Marvel projects by Marvel, by Disney, Sony, and Fox, and we're going to go through all of them. And today might be the longest video ever, but I will do this. I will accomplish this. And if you guys haven't already, leave a like and subscribe. We got all movies from the X-Men to the Fantastic Four. And also I thought, since the next movie that's actually coming out that is Marvel related is next year, I thought I have enough time to actually make this video. Now this video is going to be long, and I'm sorry. But it is what it is. And hopefully I might get a few bit of shit, but we'll see what happens. We're on the way to 500. Let's get ourselves into the actual tiers. So we got goated, nearly goated, mid, worst, and haven't seen. Haven't seen is full of all the stuff I haven't seen, just to save a lot of time. And by the way, for the series, if they have multiple seasons, I'm only going to be ranking them as a show as a whole, instead of going through every season, because that will take longer. I did a quick intro because I want to be snappy with it. We're going to start off with Iron Man 1. Now, obviously, it's been a while since I've done my opinion, so my opinions may change while making this. But we're going to start off with Iron Man 1, the OG beginning, 2008, the beginning of the MCU. What did I think of Iron Man 1? As a movie, it's alright. It's very iconic. I think, obviously, the casting, RDJ, banging cast. And if I had to give it I think the villain isn't really that good. Obadiah Stane, we don't really care. But overall, I'm going to put it as a go-to movie. Because without this movie, none of the other movies and series has happened. So this was the first good... Well, I wouldn't say it's the first good Marvel movie, because there's been multiple good Marvel movies before this. But, hey, it was the beginning of the MCU. It deserves its spot. Next up we got is The Incredible Hulk. Edward Norton's Hulk, only Hulk movie, and there's a reason for that, because it was not good. Basically, this movie is about Hulk being on the run from the government, and also we get introduced to the Abomination. Solid villain later on, in my opinion, solid villain. I don't really like Edward Norton's Hulk, and mainly because the fact that they do kind of reference it in She-Hulk, and yeah, you know what, I wouldn't say I'll probably put it in worst. Yeah, you know, that's a fair assumption. Iron Man number 2. Iron Man 2 is the one with Black Widow. It's got Whiplash, Nick Fury. I think, in my opinion, this is probably the best Iron Man movie out of the three. I think it's better than Iron Man 1, but I think Whiplash is a better villain. I think the addition of Black Widow, pretty cool. Nick Fury, obviously, pretty cool. Honestly, very solid. I think goated is fair assumption. 4. It's not good. I can't lie, the first 2-4 movies ain't that good. And to be honest, this one isn't as bad as the one that came after. So for that, I'm going to put it in mid-tier. Obviously, Loki is classic. Tom Hiddleston, amazing actor. Chris Hemsworth obviously has Thor, great. Obviously, you have Loki as the villain, setting him up for the Avengers is pretty cool as well. So for that, I'm going to put him as mid. Alright, Captain America, the first Avenger. Now, obviously, in my opinion, I have mixed opinions on this movie. Some days I think it's really good. Some days I don't really care about it. Like, it's just, yeah. Obviously, Chris Evans, great actor. Obviously, the Red Skull is the villain. Could have been better, I think, in my opinion. But he obviously is solid Captain America villain, so it's classic. Obviously, that's why. And then, obviously, we had the introduction to Bucky Barnes, Sebastian Stan, solid performance from him. Obviously, Peggy Carter as well, pretty cool. Obviously, the ending of Captain America, I think it did good, showing his origin story. And for that, I'm going to put it in nearly goated. Because I'm going to put it in nearly goated, mainly because of the fact I have mixed feelings on this movie depending on the day. On the best day, it's nearly goated. On the worst day, it's mid. So, you know, it's going to be around that category. Alright, next up, we got the first Avengers movie. We got Avengers Numero Uno. Obviously, Loki was the villain. Obviously, if we're comparing Avengers movies, I like this one. This was the first successful team-up movie. The thing that DC really wanted to do in their universe, which flopped. But it was, But this obviously changed superhero history when this movie came out, and because of how successful it was. And to be honest, it is still good to this day. I can still watch it and have a good time. And that, it gets a number one. Not the worst. Sorry. It is goated. Even though, in my opinion, later Avengers movies do better than this. In my opinion. I think... I honestly think it's... Oh. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Right, next up. What do we have? We have Iron Man... not the greatest Man movie. I think, considering the second one did really well. Pretty good. This one wasn't obviously went up to the same level. Villain-wise, I think is probably one of the weakest in the Iron Man trilogy, in my opinion. I think it is weak. Most of the movie is Iron Man dealing with the effects of the first Avengers movie and having basically PTSD, and is basically being really cautious about because he thinks that he wants to make obviously armor. Because he wants to protect the world, because he sees that there's a threat in the universe that could come. And for that, he's trying to, And to be honest, it does kind of start the character arc, which is represented in the movie later on, Avengers Age of Ultron, but we'll get onto that later on. But as an Iron Man movie, it's mid. It's not, to be honest, I wouldn't put it the worst thing I've ever seen. I think that's pretty peak if I did. But a movie I will put probably one of the worst movies is For the Dark World. No one likes this movie, and now everyone could be like, "Oh, what's the issue with For the Dark World? Thor's an amazing actor. Tom Hiddleston's an amazing actor. So how could a movie that bad? I mean, that good, much potential, be that bad? You're wondering. Well, simple. Okay, there's Blade there. I haven't seen Blade. I can't put worse. But mainly because it's probably the most forgettable movie in this universe. Memorable. The only actual memorable part is the key fake out death at the end, which obviously we thought was real, but then obviously we found out that it was a fake later on. Obviously, that Thor's mother did die, and it was kind of a dark movie, compared to all the other movies we've got. This was kind of dark, and I just didn't like it. Obviously, later on, they did fix the Thor character, but I'll get onto that. Next up, we have is Captain America, Winter Soldier. This is a goated movie. I think many Marvel fans can agree with that. And if you don't, I wonder. Okay. Well, I think Captain America, the first Avenger, did fail. I think they fixed it in Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is by far the better villain than Red Skull. Obviously, return of Baron Zemo. Not Baron Zemo, sorry. Was it? Is it Baron Zemo? Who's on the screen? I forgot his name. The Hydra guy. Obviously, the ton of Hydra. Obviously, having Black Widow in. And being a great movie. And obviously, this movie does set up as well Civil War, which was a great movie as well. Honestly, I think the Captain America Winter Soldier battle scene as well was pretty sick. And for that, I'm going to put an S tier. Next up, we got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, or the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Once again, they smashed it. James Gunn, the guy that does the DC Universe, directed this film. And, bro, he cooked. All the actors did amazing in this movie. Obviously, Roman the Accuser, amazing villain. Obviously, the chemistry and the dynamic between the group of the Guardians is just amazing. We get to see everyone have their own moment. Everyone gets a moment to shine. And honestly, it is great. And it is one of the most successful Marvel movies for a reason. That being said, goes in S tier. Yeah. Next up we got is Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, I'm going to be honest, it's a mid movie. And I'm going to tell you why. I think it's the worst Avengers movie they have made to this day. Many reasons for that. Number one, there's a lot of stuff going on. You got Ultron, you got the Ultron, you got obviously the effects of the last Avengers movie, you got obviously Vision introduced into this. You got the Maximoff twins as well. You get obviously this whole thing about Ultron wanting to raise Sokovia and drop it and destroy the Earth, which is crazy. It's just crazy. But Ultron is probably the only good thing I can say about this movie. Great villain, and great. I think it's a great choice for a villain in the movie. Obviously, I think similar to like Spider-Man 3, there's a lot of going on, and for that reason, it isn't that good. And for that, it's going to be mid. Because, to be honest, it is the worst Avengers movie. For that, it will be mid. Alright, you know what? Before we actually continue with doing Marvel movies, I think it's going to be time to actually do the Defenders series. Like, Daredevil, Punisher, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Jessica Jones. I think this is going to be the segment where I put all of them, do this tier list. Because I want to get all the Defenders out the way with. Starting off with Daredevil. By the way, like I said at the beginning, I'm not doing it based on independent series. I'm doing it over the series overall. I think Devil is amazing. I think Kingpin is a great villain. Obviously, the dynamic between Daredevil. I think every season of Daredevil is pretty good. I think season 2, I think, is the best. I think the only bad season I could think of is season 1 is probably, I think, the weakest in my opinion. But that's mainly because it's mainly of like a origin season where we get to learn about the origin of Matt Murdock. But obviously, seeing how the contrast of him and the likeable casting as well, with the side characters obviously appearing in the other show in this universe, it's pretty solid. I think overall Daredevil season 1, 2 and 3 is... Ooh, where would I put it though? I'd probably put it nearly goated, I think, in my opinion. Alright, next up we got Jessica Jones. Season 1 to 3. In my opinion, season 1, probably the best series, I think, season in any Defenders show. I think it's up there with season 2 of Daredevil. Season 2, yeah, it was alright. And then season 3, I think it's basically the same. I think both season 2, season 3, didn't really match the goodness of season 3. Season 1 of Jessica Jones. But don't get me wrong, when I say this, I mean it. But Jessica Jones, first villain, bro, he was so good. I really like that. And for that, we're going to put it in mid. Even though after I said all of that, it did all have some issues. So that's why I'm putting it in mid. Obviously, I think as well, bringing the mother back and having the villain in season 2, and then season 3, having the best friend be the villain. It's basically just her life going shit every season. But let's move on to Luke Cage. Yeah. More I'll say about this show, there's not really much. If you've seen Luke Cage, it is probably not that good. You agree it's not that good. It's had, surprisingly, 2 seasons. 2 seasons, and there's a reason they didn't continue with the third, because it was not good. Alright, and speaking of not good shows, we'll move on to Iron Fist, because that's probably the worst Defender show they probably did to this day. I did like it. I did not like it. I think it was just the most boring. Like, I can't really remember that much of season 1 and season 2. And by the way, for context, because I watched all the Defenders back to back to back, and Iron Fist was the last series I watched. Sorry, the last series I watched of the Defenders. So, yeah, we don't talk about that movie. We don't talk about Blue, no. And then, we missing on? Oh, Punisher. 2 seasons, I think it should have been renewed for a 3rd. Because how good was Punisher? It is up there with Daredevil. These two are easily the highlights of this universe. Punisher obviously was introduced to season 2 of Daredevil, and then obviously in the own show, season 1, he did great. Season 2, season 1, pretty sick. Now, we'll go on to the final show of the Defenders, which is the Defenders itself. The first team-up show is between, and only lasted 1 season. I don't know if it's because it did poorly to not renew it, but yeah, I don't think it's a bad series. I didn't mind it. Obviously, whole about trying to get Iron Fist so he can open up a gateway for the Hand. Yeah, okay, alright. But honestly, overall, I don't think it's a bad series. And the fact they were able to make an Avengers kind of team up movie into a series is pretty cool as well. Because normally they'd leave that for a big movie, but I think it was a good choice making it a series. But honestly, I like this because I like how all the characters interact. I like the chemistry. And then obviously it sets up well for Daredevil Season 3 with the fake out death once again of Daredevil, thinking he actually died. And also think about Electra as well, which is pretty cool, and some old Daredevil characters as well. Yeah, so that is it for the Defenders section. Right, also, I'm going to be doing the Spider-Man movies. So I'm going to be doing the original Tobey Maguire movies, the Andrew Garfield movies, and then also the other spin-off movies like Morbius, Madam Web, Craven, Venom as well. So this is going to be the next part of the video. Mainly because I want to do all the ones that aren't really related in timeline order, just so the final ones will actually be timeline order, even though they are all technically connected by different universes. Starting off with, we got Spider-Man 1, Tobey Maguire's first Spider-Man movie. What did I think? I actually like this movie. I think it's iconic. I think everything about this is good. I like Tobey Maguire's performance. I like, obviously, Willem Dafoe's villain, Harry Osborn, I think was good in this movie too. Obviously, it's not going to have the best of effects because it was made in 2008. But considering for a movie made in that time, during the same time as Iron Man, this was clearly a good era for movies. But I think it's a good movie. Next up, we've got Spider-Man 2, which is probably better than Spider-Man 1, in my opinion, because Dr. Octavius, amazing villain. Obviously, once again, Tobey Maguire and Harry Osborn obviously is consistent throughout this trilogy, and obviously everyone really in this, maybe not Mary Jane or Aunt May, I don't know, I don't think their parts is good, but honestly I think it was probably, the train scene is iconic. There's a few memes on this movie, but overall it is a good movie. Next up we got Spider-Man 3, and probably the most memed Spider-Man movie. And also, similar issue I had to Avengers Age of Ultron. A lot of shit was going on. We had loads of villains. We had the Venom storyline connected with the Sandman storyline, connected to Harry Osborn storyline. And then it was just going, keep swapping between each villain, trying to remind us, oh yeah, this villain hates him. No, this villain also hates him. And then it just comes down to a big mess at the end where all the fucking people just come in, where you have Sandman and Venom teaming up to fight Green Goblin and Tobey Maguire. I think this obviously is the weakest ending to a trilogy. And honestly, it didn't really do service to any of the previous two that actually were good movies. So for that, we're going to put it in mid. Next up, we got Andrew Garfield's. And before anyone says, I can't be asked to do a debate on who is the better Spider-Man actor. I'm just doing it based off the films, okay? So if I put the Amazing Spider-Man worse than the Tobey Maguire's, I'm not saying that one's the worst Spider-Man. I'm just being honest on the movie. because the movie might not do them justice. But anyways, we got The Amazing Spider-Man 1, with the villain being the Lizard. What did I think? Yeah, it's an alright movie. I think some scenes are pretty good. I think it is better than the second one. I think most fans do agree with that. I think it does do a good representation of Spider-Man's origin, even though they decided to add the parents into it this time, which is cool, I guess, but I thought really that they never really... I thought they died, like, way before the movie was set, but, you know, hey, they want to include the parents, They do them. But overall, I'm going to put it in... because it is iconic, but I think there's still some issues with it. Alright, we got the Amazing Spider-Man 2. Once again, it's probably similar tier, if not maybe a little worse than Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 3. Obviously, I have similar issues. Too many villains. Well, they have Green Goblin, Electro, but still, you can't really have two. I think, obviously, as well, the Green Goblin's, Harry Osborn's reasoning isn't really that good. It's because Spider-Man would have given him his blood to save him from the Osborn curse, which just, what? I think Electro has more of an actual good narrative to become a villain, more than Green Goblin. And I think they just thrown him in this one because they forgot to introduce him in the first. So, because of that, it's got to be mid-tier. We're going to do Venom. Venom 1 isn't... I don't think any of the Venom movies are that good, but I'm going to probably put it in mid. The villain, I can't really remember. It's just basically a good origin story. I love Tom Hardy, and I love the Venom. I love them two's chemistry throughout. I think that's the consistent thing that I've enjoyed throughout that trilogy. And then we got, obviously, Venom, Let There Be Carnage, which I think is nearly goated, but I think Carnage is sick in this movie. Obviously, it still has its issues, but overall, I think it's a strong movie. I think it's better than the first. So for that reason, we will put it in nearly goated. And then we got Venom, I think worst out of the trilogy, probably, mainly because they killed off Venom, and because to be honest, this came out similar time as the Joker movie and Joker 2 movie, and they both were really bad. So maybe it's just because of that, but I didn't enjoy this movie. They rarely used Venom at all in this movie because of the whole, we can't do it because he'll get tracked if he does. And I think it's just they wanted to save money, and also because of the potential. Obviously, we could have obviously because we had Venom Let There Be Carnage and then Spider-Man No Way Home, where he could have appeared in, but he didn't, and then they kind of ruined it with the trilogy, which obviously was meant to be a heartwarming send-off. But honestly, I just don't like this movie, and for that reason, it's gonna be the worst. But I feel bad putting on the same level for The Dark World. We are not finished with the... we got 3 more movies left of this era, which is Morbius, which are 3 really shit ones, so... we don't really have to spend a lot of time discussing it. Morbius, yeah, I don't really need to talk about it. It's just a vampire who was trying to walk and then turn himself into a vampire. Madam Web is probably the worst movie I've ever seen. It's just really fucking stupid, and I think if I talk about it, I'm going to get brain loss. And then Craven isn't as bad as the other 2, but it's not the greatest movie either. I'm not going to rewatch it, but I don't mind Aaron Taylor-Johnson's performance as Craven. But please, never again. But so that's all the Spider-Man stuff done that isn't related to the actual MCU timeline. So now we're going to do... What movies will we do next? We'll do... You know what? We'll do the original X-Men. Fuck it. Why not? X-Men 1. Decent. I like the X-Men 1 movie. Isn't obvious. It's it's kind of iconic. We can't lie, but as a movie, it's alright. I'm at X-Men 2. I think it's cool. I think it goes more into Wolverine's origin story, a bit more. Obviously having the villain be the person responsible for Wolverine being Wolverine, which is kind of cool, and we get to see how them two. I forgot the name of him, by the way, so that's why I'm not really calling him by his actual name, but we get to see how them two interact. Also, I think Jean Grey's sacrifice, which is pretty cold, in my opinion. I think it was pretty sad. And I think, obviously, as well, the casting for these movies are great as well. So, for that, we're going to put it in nearly goated. X-Men The Last Stand, it's alright. I think it's a questionable move, like killing Charles Xavier, and obviously having the Dark Phoenix be the villain, pretty cool. But also, we had Magneto the villain, and I just don't like movies where there's multiple villains when they don't do it right, and I think this is like one of the movies that proved my point. But it isn't that bad. I can rewatch it, isn't that bad. So I'll put it mid. X-Men Wolverine's Origin. X-Men Origins. Wolverine X-Men Origins. It's very questionable. I don't know. Obviously, this is supposed to tell the origin of Wolverine, and I think it did a great job at doing that. And I think it was a good job of it showing him how he adjusted to his new mutant abilities. But, being said, there is an issue with the villain in this movie, and that is the fact that Deadpool is a guy that the Merc with a mouth has no mouth, and also has laser beams. I don't know if they understand the whole premise of Deadpool, but he does not have laser beams or... And by the way, this was... the actor who actually played Deadpool was Ryan Reynolds. But still, they butchered that, and for that, it's got to go mid because of that. Oh, no, I put the wrong movie in. Alright, next up we got is X-Men Wolverine. I don't really like this movie a lot. Honest opinion, I'll probably put it in probably the worst that I've seen. It's basically about Wolverine in Japan fighting, samurais? Yeah, I don't know. To be honest, it's just... I know a lot of people could be like, oh, it's a great movie. But no. X-Men The First Class. I actually really like this movie. I think there's good casting. I think it's a very strong movie. Obviously, it's good showing how Charles Xavier ended up in a wheelchair. But overall, I think it's pretty good. The villain, not really memorable, but it's pretty good. I'll put it in mid. Okay, next we'll do is X-Men X-Men Apocalypse. It's not that bad of a movie. I think there's some highlights, like Quicksilver's like running around scene. In a mansion was pretty cool. I think the whole thing about Apocalypse collecting like people to join his like villain thing, pretty cool. And honestly, I think Apocalypse is sick. I think Oscar Isaac was a very good actor, and I think he had a decent performance in this movie. And for that, I'm gonna put it in nearly goated. I think this is one of my favorite X-Men movies, followed by the one that I think deserves goated, X-Men Days of Future Past. The best X-Men movie deserves the best spot. This obviously incorporates the younger X-Men franchise plus the original X-Men together for this great movie about them going back in time with sending Wolverine, having the Sentinels, having both Magnetos, and that scene of Professor X talking to his younger self is so good. I just really loved that. And honestly, it's a great movie. Now, we got X-Men, The Dark. Once again, revisiting the same storyline from the X-Men 3, The Last Stand, and I think they made this even worse than the original, than X-Men 3, but yeah, it just I didn't really like it, and for that, it's gonna go in the worst movies. Yeah, I agree. It goes in the worst. Okay, I think we got some more movies left, actually. We're actually back on the original X-Men, until we're back onto the original timeline. And we have got none other than Logan. Logan. I think, once again, S tier. This is a great movie. And obviously, Hugh Jackman's performance is probably the highlight of it. Having him as well do a heroic sacrifice is very emotional, as he died doing something good, being a hero, and you got to see it in that. Obviously, the villain is probably not really that memorable. It's just basically a younger version of him, who's like young, old, and obviously we get to see how the effects of the future affect him, and how his age is making him weaker, and that is great presented throughout the movie. As well, it does a great send off to Charles Xavier as well, so don't forget. And for that, I put it in goated. I think goated. Logan is better than the original Wolverine movie, and I think and Wolverine 2. So I think it's got to be S tier. Next up, we're gonna do Fantastic Four. Why not? The first Fantastic Four movie, I didn't mind it. I think it's not that bad. I think having Doctor Doom as a villain is alright. I think some cast members are good in this movie. I think The Thing is probably one of the best things we've got. I think apart from the recent Fantastic Four, which I'll get onto later. We got obviously Reed Richards. I think was a great cast. The weakest I think is throughout both of these movies is Sue Storm, or known as Invisible Woman or something, Invisible Girl, whatever her name is. I forgot. Mrs. Fantastic, basically, is probably the weakest, because in the comics and throughout even the recent Fantastic Four movie, you can see how powerful she actually is, but they fail to show that in these movies, and they just make her as like the weak, attractive, like, hero woman, and that's basically it. She doesn't really have much of a storyline throughout any of these movies, and to be honest, they could have done even more with the character. That being said, I think Doctor Doom, very strong villain. I think obviously RDJ, when he comes along, will obviously shit on him. And for overall, it's a decent first movie. So for that, I'll put it in mid. Next being said is Fantastic Four, The Rise of the Silver Surfer, I think it is. Honestly, I don't really like this movie. I think they butchered Galactus in this, having him a massive cloud instead. Because after even watching the recent Fantastic Four movie and then you watch this one, you can see how much they butchered Galactus. And honestly, yeah, for that, it's got to be... You can't butcher Galactus like that and think it's going to be a good movie. So it's going to go in the worst. Next up, we got is Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2. I think Deadpool 1 is goated. A very unique Marvel movie at the time that we've never seen one like this before. The humour being crazy, and obviously the fact it's like not like a movie, a superhero movie, but not for kids. Like, what? And there's no one really on his level, and that for that reason, it's got to be goated. I have to be honest, it's got to be goated. That being said, we got Deadpool 2. Now, Deadpool 2, I think, is worse than Deadpool 1. Even though Cable is a cool villain, I do prefer Cable, though. I think the villain-wise is a lot better in this movie than in the original one. I think the whole thing about Cable coming back. And I do think the ending is funny, where Deadpool goes back in time and he changes the future, like seeing baby Hitler and seeing... obviously killing himself before signing on to do Green Lantern. I think like the jokes are just too funny in this movie, and for that reason I'm going to put it in nearly good. I think this movie is better than the first one, but I think it's just could be I don't know, it's going to switch. It'll probably switch on my head. And I think that being said, that should be all the Marvel movies not related to the actual main storyline in this. So let's continue with where we left off with Ant-Man. Ant-Man 1. I think Ant-Man 1 is this trilogy is
I think it's a mid movie, Ant-Man 1. I'm going to be honest, very mid. In my opinion, very mid. I think the villain, pretty cool. But to be honest, think about it later on, the way he turned into MODOK, I just didn't really like. I think, as well, what else was I going to say? I think, obviously, Paul Rudd's an amazing actor. And I think overall, to be honest, it's just a mid-movie. I can't see it being bad, and I can't see it being like the best. So for that, we'll put it mid. Doctor Strange, it's gonna put it nearly goated. I think obviously the visuals and the effects in this movie is fucking amazing. Like the scenes of him being cool. Like the Ancient One as well, very cool character. But to be honest, I wish we got to find out more about her before she died. And then obviously the villain, not really that memorable. Dormammu, I think they kind of butchered by turning one of the most powerful villains into a kind of joke side villain. But having him face Dormammu in the first movie and beating him, fair props. Like, you're doing something that not a lot of people could do. So you know what, I give you a lot of credit for that. Okay, let's do this. Next movie is Captain America Civil War. Yeah, you'd be stupid not to put it in the highest tier, because it is actually definition of goated. I'm happy for Captain America. Both sides, the way they did it as well, like the way Batman and Superman did it, like you kind of saw like one was kind of more on the right than the other, but this one they kind of both had good reasons to go against each other, and to be honest, they both had good reasons to be angry enough with each other. I think the airport fight scene is probably up there with one of the best Marvel fight scenes. Obviously, it had the introduction of Spider-Man, the introduction of Black Panther. It continued the story of another S-tier movie, which was The Winter Soldier. And honestly, as well, Zemo being the guy he is behind the strings, like being like the puppet master of it all, pretty cool. And having it linked to the death of Tony Stark's parents as well. Honestly, it's just amazing script writing. Can't say anything more about that. And for that reason, it's got to be S tier. Now we got Spider-Man Homecoming. First movie of Tom Holland's Peter Parker. Now, I like the villain in this. I think the Vulture is pretty strong. And having the legendary actor, I forgot the name of the actor. He was also in Batman. I mean, in The Flash, but I forgot what the name was. But he was a great actor. I think, honestly, it isn't supposed to be that crazy because it is the first movie of trilogy. Well, it's going to be a 4 movie now because the next one's coming out next year. But honestly, I think this movie is nearly goated. Or I'll put it nearly goated. Yeah. Next up, we got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm going to put it in mid. I think it was a mid movie. I think it is just worse than the first one. Because, like, the comedy, I think, is just too much. Obviously, having Ego, the villain, I don't really like that. Even though he is very powerful, and he's a planet, to be honest, as well as I like how it connects to, obviously, being related to Peter Quill. I honestly like how we went more into Peter Quill's story, but I think for most of my mind is telling me it's mid. Thor Ragnarok is the best Thor movie, so we got to put it in the S tier. Wow. This movie has just changed Thor completely and made him so much better. They made him more funny. They made the fight scenes more better. They obviously had a 4v Hulk part, and honestly, the villain is pretty good. I think, obviously, Hela, very strong villain, and having Asgard destroyed at the end, it was crazy as well. For that, we're going to put it in S tier. Black Panther, one of the most successful movies Marvel did before, I think, Infinity War Endgame. And I think it was the first movie to get $1 billion in the box office in this universe. And honestly, it was well. Obviously, RIP the GOAT, Chadwick Boseman. His movie was good. Killmonger as Michael B. Jordan, very good casting in my opinion. Obviously, them two going against each other, very cool. The soundtrack as well, having All of the Stars and Pray For Me is great songs as well. overall, this movie I like. I think it is better than obviously the last Black Panther movie, and honestly, it is very good. Like this era of Marvel movies, it was so good. And then, yeah, out of nowhere, we got Avengers: Infinity War. Holy this movie was amazing. You know what? We're gonna do Infinity War and Endgame back to back because these two are just amazing movies. Yeah. We'll start off with Infinity War. Infinity War, obviously, introduction of Thanos, and he fucked up everyone in this movie, and he destroyed everyone. And honestly, the dust scene at the end, the snap, just so shocking, because no one would think the Avengers would lose. And it was crazy. But obviously, it all built up into Endgame. And trust me, these two movies in the cinema was probably one of the greatest King things ever. And for that, it's got to be an ST, bro. These are probably the two best Marvel movies. I don't know which one's better out of the two. I think the portal scene is probably the best King action fight scene ever, in my opinion. For that, both of these movies are going to be an S tier. Moving on to Ant-Man and the Wasp, I think it's the best Ant-Man movie in, I think, this trilogy. I think it's better than Quantumania, and I think it's better than the original. And the reason for that is, I think, honestly, where they failed with the first one, I think they made better with the second one. I think the villain, Ghost, is pretty strong. I think it's better than the villain in the first one, more memorable. I think, obviously, the whole thing about trying to bring back Hank Pym's wife, Janet, from the quantum realm, pretty strong story. Is it Janet? I think no, I might be wrong. I'm sorry. I might be getting the wife and the daughter confused, but that was pretty strong. Obviously, this came out during the era of Infinity War, and we were like, I don't know what's gonna happen. And including the credit scene, that perfectly set up Endgame. For that reason, it's got to be nearly goated. Captain Marvel, yeah, the less we say about it, the better. But it is got to be in the worst movie. Obviously, I think it's stupid because it came out before Endgame. I think they did the right thing by not having her a lot in Endgame because first of all, she's too overpowered, and the movie isn't that good. So it would have been better to leave it the way they did. And I think, yeah. Alright, we are going to be doing the Loki series. Ooh, Loki is going to be good. I think it's easily goated. I think, obviously, to be honest, the only criticism I give it throughout Loki season 1 and 2 is kind of pointless in the fact that, obviously, the main villain antagonist in this is Kang, but really, we know what happened to Jonathan Majors, so really, yeah, they didn't really do much. They couldn't really continue with it. And obviously, I think the fact they made Loki's character so good throughout the series, and I think, honestly, I'm just hoping they keep it up for Doomsday and Secret Wars, because if they butcher his character arc in that, I will be sad. We still need that full reunion with Loki. I think that needs to happen. And I think it is probably Marvel's MCU's best show. Next up we got is WandaVision. Oh, actually, so I need to put this back. WandaVision. I'm going to put it in nearly goated. I think Agatha Harkness, very strong villain. I think, obviously, the whole process about seeing, obviously, Wanda grieving the loss of Vision and seeing how she gets over the grief, as well as, obviously, every week we got, like, a different, like, show, because it was just, like, taking, like, different eras of shows and, like, making it every episode. And to be honest as well, during this time, it was lockdown, and, like, no one knew what was going on. And honestly, I know they did butcher it with the whole Evan Peters plot twist. I know that was a massive FU troll, but, you know, it doesn't matter. Apart from that, I think it's a goated show. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I think, is mid. I think the villain is weak. I think the whole premise of this show is basically to show the evolution of Falcon turning into Captain America. Obviously, because Captain America gave him the shield at the end of Endgame, hence why he became, Captain America. And honestly, Bucky, very strong. I think Bucky always carries whatever movie or series he's in. Loki. Oh wait, we already had Loki. So maybe I'll put Loki back, because Loki, we've already had season 1 and season 2. What If? Alright, What If? What If, I think, had a lot of potential to be really good. I think season 1 was actually pretty good, because they had the What If Zombies episode. I think Infinity Ultron was pretty cool as well, but I think season 2 and season 3 kind of lay it down. I think if it was only a one series thing, or if they actually did stories that could have been actually interesting, I think it could have been a GOAT series. But because of that, it's going to probably go into mid, because season 2 and season 3 were kind of a letdown, in my opinion. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, I think it's a goated movie. I think it's very cool. The action scenes we see in it is really nothing like we've seen before, and I think Shang-Chi as a character is pretty cool as well. I think obviously the whole thing about his dad trying to bring back the mother kind of makes sense, and it's a good motive, you know. But obviously, evil source of the dragon thing, yeah, but you know, it's Marvel, like they can get away with basically anything. Alright, Spider-Man No Way Home, Far From Home, obviously distills the grief of Iron Man, the effects of losing Iron Man, obviously him coming back from being snapped. And it's basically Spider-Man in Europe. They go across different areas in Europe. Mysterio, very strong villain. Obviously Samuel L. Jackson's in this as well. Very good as Nick Fury. I think this is as well a solid movie. As well, I think Mysterio is a good villain. And also it does set up the effects of No Way Home very nicely. So for that, I'm going to put it in GOATed, because I do think it is better than Spider-Man Homecoming, in my opinion. Black Widow, I think it's a good movie, but the issue with this movie is the time frame it came out. I think if this movie came out during the Civil War era, before Infinity War, I would put it it'll probably be really solid. But issue being that the movie came out after we know what happened to the character, because the character died in Endgame. So why make a movie about a character that died? Because if the movie did well and successful, not saying it did, but if it did really well, they can't continue the story because the character's dead, and they can't just revive her for that. And because of that, it's going to be nearly good. Even though they did introduce David Harbour's Red Guardian and Yelena's Florence Pugh's Yelena. Overall, it's I'll put it in nearly good, because it could have been way much better. Eternals, yeah. They had too much going on in this movie, and I did put off this movie for a while, but I did try to watch it, I think last year, and to be honest, I just didn't really like it. I think the casting was alright, but it's just, they dropped too much lore on us so quickly, and they had this whole thing about how powerful they are, but they never intervened when Thanos wiped out half of the universe, which I just find kind of weird. And obviously this whole thing about the Celestials, and yeah, it's a lot. It's very complicated at times. So for that, I'm going to put it in the worst. Alright, next up we got Hawkeye. Obviously Hawkeye isn't the best Avenger, but he's had a good show. I think obviously having someone training under him, I think is pretty cool. Obviously someone to take over his mantle when he retires. I like how they bring back the Ronin during the whole Endgame era. Making that relevant. I think bring back Kingpin as well, very cool, the way they did it. And even though obviously Kingpin didn't really do a lot in this series, because he only got introduced really near the end, it was still a solid series. And for that, I'm going to put it in mid. I think it's not the worst, it's not the best, so it goes in mid. Spider-Man No Way Home, what a movie this is. Bring it back, it's basically a Marvel homage to all the previous Marvel Spider-Man movies, and they did it so right. They had obviously all the previous villains. Not Tobey Maguire. No, Tobey Maguire wasn't it, but he's not obviously a villain. But we had Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man, Andrew Garfield, Spider-Man, all the villains from throughout all the movies, and they made it work. Obviously, the death of Aunt May was sad, but it was a great movie, and also the fact that the ending as well was crazy, making everyone forget who he really was. Twist that I did not see coming. Alright, next up we got Moon Knight. I really like Oscar Isaac's performance in this movie, and I can't lie, all things Marvel related, Oscar Isaac seemed to always do good at. Even Spider-Man 99, fucking great. But obviously, I didn't really understand the series at first. I found it hard to understand, considering obviously I'm not the biggest comic book fan. But I think this series, it took me a while to understand. But once I actually understood the story, I kind of enjoyed it. Obviously, I do think it's like one of the most forgotten characters in the MCU, mainly because they've done the series and haven't done anything with him since. So for that reason, you're gonna put him in. You guessed it. Yeah. Next up, we got Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Another mid-movie. I think they could have done way much more. I think the introduction of the Illuminati, I think, was pretty cool. But I think they could have done much more. I think the whole point of introducing the Illuminati was to show how strong really Wanda was. And it was basically a good continuation of... it was basically WandaVision 2, this movie. But honestly, I think Wanda as a villain is unique, and I think it is pretty cool because... to be honest, she is kind of scary, because she's like one of the most powerful characters in the whole fucking universe. So yeah, next up we got Miss Marvel. Yeah, I like the actor. The actor's cool, and I think she does portray her well, but I just don't think it's that strong of a series. I'm sorry. So for that, we're gonna put it in. Yeah. This was a weird period of Marvel because we had a lot of shit movies coming out this era. We had Captain Marvel, and then we had Thor Love and Thunder. Yeah, this movie is just basically they tried to copy Ragnarok and just failed miserably. Don't get me wrong, I think they butchered Gore because they had a really good actor, Christopher Nolan, and they made him the villain, and it could have so much potential, but they made him really bad because it ended up being really goofy. Yeah, for that reason it is bad. She-Hulk, yes, you could go into the worst because no one likes She-Hulk, and that's true because they legit had She-Hulk fucking twerking on the characters. If that scene just doesn't make you know how the show is, yeah, but for some reason it might even get a season 2, and I don't understand who wanted a season 2 of that show. I think it's just the trolls wanting the fucking troll, but hey, it is what it is, I guess. Woo! Alright, next up we got Black Panther 2. This was a nice movie, because it was a nice tribute movie to Chadwick Boseman, and I think they did it well. Namor is a strong villain, and overall, I think it's a very good setting up his Shuri to take over the Black Panther mantle. Next up we got Ant-Man 3, Quantumania. I think this movie is kind of pointless, considering the fact that Kang isn't really that relevant now in the storyline. Similar issue with Loki, but the fact they failed to show really how powerful he was, because we see him get defeated by ants and then lose to Ant-Man. Yeah, it's just like it's like introducing Thanos in Guardians of the Galaxy and making him lose to Groot. Like, that's just basically the equivalent. As well as it made two, I think Michael Douglas, the actor of Hank Pym, retired legit after this movie, and I believe the Wasp also retired after this movie. If that doesn't show how the movie is, it made two of the actors fucking retire because they're like, yeah, nah. And for that, we're gonna put it in the no, you know what? I'll put it in mid because it is a solid movie. It is a mid because I do like Paul Rudd's Ant-Man. You can't hate on him. Alright, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is got to be in goated. I think it's the best way to cap off an amazing trilogy of films. Obviously, focusing on Rocket's Raccoon story, very cool. Obviously, the way they ended it, that trilogy is good because it was like the last good movie that they did with the original Guardians of the Galaxy, and it was James Gunn's, I believe, last movie in the MCU, and he ended it with a bang, to be honest. I don't know really if they're going to appear in Avengers Doomsday. I don't know, to be honest, but we'll see what happens with those characters. Woo! Alright, next up we got Secret Invasion. Yeah, the next two we can put in fucking F tier. Well, on the bottom, well, it's not F tier, it's the worst. Secret Invasion is for a series of a lot of it could have been so much better. It ended up being really badly, and for that we're gonna put it in the bottom tier. And then the Marvels, it's not. If you thought the Captain Marvel was bad, they combined Captain Marvel with the Miss Marvel, who's had like one of the worst Marvel shows. They combined the worst movie with the worst show and made this movie. And the only memorable part, I think Monica Rambeau did pretty good. I don't remember the villain in this movie, but I do remember Beast in the post-end credits. That's the only thing I remember, and that's the post-end credit scene. So yeah. Alright, well, we already went this movie, so we'll put it low. Alright, I need to move that also. Alright, Echo. I actually didn't mind this when it came out. Obviously, the character isn't really that most interesting character that they could have done a series on, but it did have a lot of Kingpin in it, so you can't really complain, because Kingpin's fucking great. But honestly, there wasn't really much, and it isn't really memorable, but apart from that, the stuff I do remember from it is pretty good. Obviously, having Ronan tied into it again, pretty solid, in my opinion. Ooh, X-Men 97. Oh, bro, I haven't watched that series in ages. And that's going to be goated because, bro, the animation is like old, but also sick at the same time. So for that, I'm going to put it in goated. Alright, Deadpool and Wolverine. Bro, having Hugh Jackman, Wolverine, and Deadpool in the same movie, I'm not butchering it. They cooked. It was movie of the year, in my opinion, for 2024. For that reason, it's got to be GOAT tier. Obviously, they did a nice homage to all the previous X-Men movies in this, as well as obviously the previous Deadpool movies. And for that reason, it's got to be goated. I do think the villain's not the greatest, but apart from that, this movie is pretty strong, in my opinion. Even the Bye 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 dance is still pretty cool as well. And I think it is probably the best movie, if not best superhero movie of last year. So for that reason, it's got to be there. Agatha All Along. I didn't really mind this series. I think I liked it, you know. Obviously, having the focusing on more of the witches, pretty cool. Unique but cool. I remember watching this, and I never hated it. I was liking it basically till the end, and hopefully we do get more Ghost Agatha in this show. As well as they introduced Lady Death, was pretty cool, in my opinion. Woo! Alright, we got Spider-Man, this animated one. Bro, this series was amazing. I watched it earlier this year, when it came out. Yeah, they could. This was during by the way, this was during the same time as the Invincibles series came out, and I was watching both of these like back to back, and these were sick. This was basically set in a different Spider-Man universe, obviously, but you get to see like the differences like in how Norman Osborn is, and like what would happen if he got bit earlier. And honestly, everything about this show is fucking sick, and I can't wait for season 2 of this series. So for that, I'm gonna put it in. You know what? I'll put it in nearly goated. I think that's a fair assumption. Guys, we have nearly done it. We've got 5 more movies / shows to go through. Starting off with Captain America, Brand New World. Red Hulk, legit teased him the whole movie to be this amazing villain, and then he only came out at the end. Don't get me wrong, I love his performance, obviously, very solid. Harrison Ford, obviously great actor, known for the Star Wars and Indiana Jones, but he got to be Red Hulk, which I love. Obviously, if you didn't really like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, you probably wouldn't have liked this movie. Fair enough. But this movie, I think, is a mixed bag for me, and for that, I'm going to put it in mid, because similar to some other movies and series, depending on the day. Next up we got is Daredevil Born Again. I'm going to put it in nearly goated. I think, obviously, bringing back the Daredevil series after, like, how long? I made it, obviously, very cool. Obviously, bringing back Punisher. And it just gave me good old vibes. And to be honest, fun fact, I did watch this before any of the Defenders or any of the actual Daredevil series. So, this was the first thing I had. And after I watched this, I rewatched the whole of the Defenders and Daredevil. And after I watched all of them, I can finally appreciate how good this show actually is. Next up, we got Thunderbolts. What a movie that came out this year. I really enjoyed Thunderbolts. and I think it is probably a movie. I think it is close between this and this and Fantastic Four, and which movie I think is going to be the best Marvel movie of the year, or at least of the summer. But I really enjoy this movie. I think having all the side characters in a movie team is pretty cool. And obviously, but the only issue is most of these characters are only really known because of the shows. And if you didn't watch any of the shows, you probably would be lost watching this movie, and you probably wouldn't really understand like who these characters are. And that's the only criticism I would give. I think obviously Sentry, too OP, but so cool at the same time. So apart from that, overall it's a nearly good movie. And also focusing on the dark topic of mental health is pretty unique, because Marvel doesn't really do that a lot. But hey, next up we got Ironheart. I love Mephisto because Sacha Baron Cohen, like, you got the funniest actors, like a very serious character, and honestly, he carried that. But you're only introduced to him in the final episode, which sucks because he would have been so cool to have throughout the whole series. But they only showed him at the end. But hopefully we get more of him in the Marvel universe. But honestly, apart from his appearance, this series is mid, I think. It isn't the worst. Even though some people make it out to be, it isn't the worst. Oh, we got the final movie. The final countdown. Bro. It's got to be goated. Fantastic Four. First of all, they got The Mandalorian. And if you want to know my thoughts on The Mandalorian, watch my Star Wars tier list. But we got, obviously, The Mandalorian. We got Vanessa Kirby as Sue Storm. We got the guy from Stranger Things, Chris Waker. He's great as well. And then, obviously, we got The Thing fighting Galactus. Oh, bro, Galactus aura-farmed. He is so sick. And considering what we got in that Fantastic Four movie, it was so much better. Levels above. And honestly, because of that, it is the best one they've done on screen. And honestly, I like this cast. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for my tier list on how there was like over 100 fucking movies and series I did today. So leave a prayer in the comments. And honestly, I can't wait to come back to do it for Doomsday and Secret Wars and the new Spider-Man. To be honest, I'm going to probably wait another 2 years to do it again. But trust me, this video took ages. So hope you enjoyed today's video. Leave a like, subscribe, and